Okay, this is movie number 3, and it is based on using Adobe Photoshop to make selections that come into Adobe Illustrator as paths and then can get filled on these layers right here that I'm clicking on. And each one of these layers can be maneuvered into a lower opacity, which is why you see gray in the middle of those circles. That means that opacity or some effect has been added to those. I want to turn off these in order and zoom in and show you the impact of them. And I'm going to do it like this. So there were the small pores. You see the dark little things that are in there? I'm going to turn them off. Now look at the highlights. Look at how those are gone. Now the next one is, I have 2 of them, dark 1 and dark 2, because I needed 2 of them. Then I have dark 3 for the real dark areas, because a darkness in a medium value is a heck of a lot less dark than a darkness in a dark value, if you follow what I just said. Then I have even a 4th one called darker. Now, I wanted you to see this face, this gradient mesh. And I'm not going to click on the gradient mesh because that would kind of make you all nervous, but I have a movie for this on how I built the gradient mesh, but this is just about how to make Photoshop and Illustrator work in tandem to bring texture and real life into your images or into your paintings. So I'm going to turn it back on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I have any issues with this, I may have to restart both Illustrator and Photoshop and maybe even my machine, because they're very complex things. What do I mean by that? Look at how big the pores are that I brought in from Photoshop. I want to show you how I did that. Look at the highlight ones. Do you see how it's only in the highlight areas? Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I'll leave these on, but I'm going to actually turn off this and make a new texture layer, and I'm going to call it texture 2. I'll double click this and hit Command C. I'll double click that and hit Command V number 2, and then let's work different things into that. Okay, so let's go grab from Han the little pores that I used on his face. So let's go over. I already have it opened in Photoshop, and you can see here how I have drawn a path to outline. Let me show you, it's just a path that only outlines his actual face and the pores that I want to appear, but not in his eye areas or eyebrows or on his mouth or in the shadow areas. Okay, I only want them in the light areas because I'm going to have to recreate one for inside the shadow areas. So how I do that, and I'm going to back out of this, is I'm going to click away from this. I made a layer right here, and I made a big square just like this, okay? And I made the square into a bunch of just white dots on a black background. How did I do that? I'm going to command click it, and I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to turn it off. Let me make a new layer there. So I want to turn, not using color range in this sense, I want to turn something into a bunch of pores, okay? Because you can't really see, I'm zooming in on Han, you can't really see all these little tiny pores are there. Photoshop isn't that sensitive that it can actually isolate that. But there is a trick, and here's the trick. So the trick is fill a layer up with black, boom. Now, I'm going to back out of this. What I want is I only want this to be turned into coarse dots. Okay, so with that layer selected, let's go to Filter, Pixelate, Mezzotint. And in Mezzotint, I'm going to go to Coarse Dots. Grainy dots or coarse dots. I forget which one I used. I used those. I'm going to say OK. Now, look at how I have a bunch of coarse dots. Now, those are still too small. So for me to turn them into this, look what I turned them into. You see how much bigger I made them? Well, how do you make those dots bigger? Well, I'm going to click to this, and I'm just going to grab an area of this. I'm using the M key, and I'm making a marquee about something about this big right there, and I'll move it somewhere towards the middle like this, and I'll hit Command J on that layer I just made. Now I'll throw away the layer 20. I'm just throwing it away. Whoops, I just duplicated it. I'm throwing away the layer 20. Sorry, I duplicated it. So now I'm going to make that by hitting Command T on that. I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to fill his face with it. I'm just going to make it as large as I can to get the dots to the size that I want. Okay? Now I'm hitting the return key. Now let me zoom in and see if that's going to be good for his face. Let's go like this and see if that's going to be good. Let's see what I actually chose before. Well, that one is very similar to this one. Still a little bit bigger. I need them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to actually take that, and the reason why I'm not just hitting Command T and making them bigger is I don't want to go beyond the pasteboard and just have more memory in the file. So what do I do again? Well, don't be afraid. Just take a section of this and hit Command J and then throw away the layer that's below it. So you make the decision. But now let me hit Command T and let's now make this one be bigger than his head and his neck area. That's why I'm doing it for eventually for the neck and the head area. There. Now, I'm going to use the path of this to designate where I want the dots. So watch this. I'm going to take it and I'm going to Command J it. Now I only have the dots on his face. Do you see that? Those are the dots I want to bring in there, but not like this. I actually want to bring them in by Command I-ing them. Do you see how I want those dark little things that are there? Now, what do I have to do that? Well, on that layer, these do me no good. Okay, they're just shapes. Well, I can use the magic wand, which is the W key, and make sure it's on the correct magic wand down here, and leave it on a tolerance of about 25, maybe even 30. I'll go to 25, and click it. Now, do you see how I have a good rendition of it? But you see how it missed some of the grays that are in the outside? I'm going to go close and I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to actually add that gray to it and make it a little bit larger. Okay, so now I can turn off that layer. I really don't need it. I could actually throw that layer away. It's these little marqueed dots that I want for his pores, but not in Photoshop. I want them in Illustrator. So what do I have to do? I'm hoping this can actually get through the process without quitting. When my movie making program isn't on, I don't have an issue. But let me go to make a work path. Let's go to a 0.5 device tolerance and click OK. Now, it shouldn't take too long. I mean, 30 seconds would be a long time for this thing to actually do its thing. So I'm actually going to let it go. I'm going to hit Command period to pause the video. When it comes back, you will see it. Okay, that really only did take about 30 seconds. So now that it's selected, I'm going to go the long-fashioned way. I would just hit Command or Control C, but I'm actually going to copy it this way because for some reason it's just being funny today. So I am now going, this portion of Photoshop is done. Okay, see how I have a new work path right here? I'll name this number 1, if it even lets me name it. So let's name it number 1. Let's click the return key. Everything is taking a minute. Now I'm going to Command click away from that, and now I can go right into Illustrator. And now I'm in Illustrator. Now I want to have this be matched up to his face perfectly. So this is your first process of doing that. Command V to paste. Now let me go up here and make sure Command, oh goodness gracious, it's not there. It should have been there. It's not there. I'll go do one more Command C click. This should be pasting in with no problem. I'm not exactly sure why it's giving me this problem today, but you know, you have to deal with this stuff, and especially doing a demo, I want to be accurate. I do need to go to the clipboard and make sure that Preserve Paths is on, and I'm going to click OK. So we go back into Photoshop. One more time, let me click on number 1. Let me back off of number 1. It has to not just be selected by, let me go Command minus because I have to get a marquee around the whole thing. Okay, let me now move it. Okay, let's go like this and move it up. I don't need it selected like that, Mr. Soriel. Okay, it's acting really funny. Let me move it on screen. Let me go Command minus one more time. Gosh, I apologize for this. But we'll get it to work. Okay, now I'm going to go to the pen tool. In the pen tool, I would just click the P key, but it's acting funny. I'm going to hold the Command key and I'm going to marquee all these points. I want to make sure I take the time to do this. Let them be selected. Give it a second. Give it a second. Give it a second. Goodness gracious. One more time, let me put them on to copy. Now I'll wait for them to go into the clipboard. Maybe I'm just being too impatient. Okay, actually I just saw that they did. Let's go into Illustrator. I am going to click away from it and I'm going to go back into Illustrator. If I can't do this, I'll stop this movie, but I'm sure I can. So now let me hit Command. No, I'm not going to. I'm going to go into... Okay, I had to go back into Photoshop and then I had to make sure I saved my Illustrator file before they actually showed up like this. Now I can paste. So I paste them and I get a compound shape that's fully editable but is more memory. I'm going to go to the faster compound path and click OK. Now there they are. Now all I have to do is hold the Shift key and resize those. But look up on the layer palette. I have to move it down to that new texture layer that I wanted right here. And I'm going to throw away layer 1. And I'm going to double click this layer and turn it into the blue color that I need, or some color I can see. So I'm going to use my Shift key and make them bigger. I'm sorry, I didn't use my Shift key. I'm going to use, my finger was on the Option key. So now I'm going to make them larger and slowly pick them up and put them in place. So I've kind of matched them to the top of his head. Let's kind of now match them a little bit more around his eyes, right about like this. This is about where they're going to go, right about, I'm looking a little bit smaller actually. So let's go a little bit smaller. And now I need them not to be in his eyes, and you can see how I've got them in a pretty good area, just like this. I'll shrink them a little bit like that. Let's bring them down a little bit from the top. And now that fits just about right. It's just about where I want them. Let's shrink them like this. Now look at how I have those in about the right area. Okay, fine. Let me hit the Direct Select tool. Now let's fill them with a dark face value. So what I have to do is zoom in. Let's get the eyedropper, so I hit the I key, and let's make sure the fill is in the front and fill them with a nice face value. So they're like that. A little bit darker and a little bit more intensely red. Okay, just a little bit like this. Now let me back off of this. Okay, now when I click away from it, with the A key, they're not going to look very good, right? Well, notice where I don't want them, I can click on each individual one, which I'll show you in a second. Like there's some on his top lip. I don't like those there. But watch how I select the circle and put it on an opacity of about 3 or 4%. Now when I click away from that, look at how gorgeous they are. Now let me zoom in. Do you see? I'll open this up and let's call this overall. Now I'll save the file. Each time I better save the file. And I'm getting this on my other screen. It's okay because I did this in CS like CC 14 or 15 or 16. So now I have them. Now if I don't want some of them, you can use the Direct Select tool. Like there's a few, let me click the overall clicky right there. There's a few on his lip right here. I might not want that one. See how I can click on it and hit delete, delete? 2 deletes. Now I can click on that one, delete, delete. So you can get rid of the ones you don't want because it's just a compound path. Now let's go get the highlight one. So I'm going to click away from this. Hopefully the highlight one, I'm saving the file, will let me go faster in Adobe Photoshop. So let's go back into Photoshop and let's deselect this one. Goodness gracious alive. It might take me a second. Oh, this is painful. It's fun, but it's painful. There's no reason why they should be doing this. It's not that complex. So let me command click this and turn it off. Now let's go get the highlighted one. So this one should be a little bit easier. I want these highlighted pinks. So I make a selection of his overall face, which is right, let me move this over, which is going to be right, I need his face, which is, I thought I had a better one of his face, but that's okay. So I want color range to only look in this area, so I'm making a selection of only this area. So let's ask color range to go into that area. So let me move it over here. Let's zoom in, and I want this pink color. I really want this highlighted pink right here. Now, I'm going to go down so it only gets that much of that highlight area. See how much I got there? Okay, I might even go down farther. Let me look at what I'm getting. So I really wanted this highlight color. I'm going to re-click it. Okay, I think I've got the better one that I wanted right there. Let me move it to about right here, and let's click OK. Now, that's about what I got before. Okay, I got a little bit more in this side right over here. I'll show you kind of what I got, and it took me a few clicks to get it. This isn't a bad one though. Let's actually use this one because it'll turn into a little bit better color. Now what I did was to paint the correct color in Illustrator, to use the right color, sometimes you can just click this and grab the RGB values. So I would just make a snapshot of this RGB value. All right, 244, 1999, 199, and 194. But let's now do the thing. Let's go over here to make a new work path. Let's leave it at that device tolerance. Do you see how fast it made that one? That's how fast I hope it would work. Let's go highlight 1. And now I have it. Now, let's go Command C. Copy. I should go Command C, but I don't trust my keyboard at the moment. Let's click back to Illustrator. Let's make sure it's in paste. Now let's paste it. Again, as a compound path. Now, again, we have to make it the right size. So let's hit Command, the E key, and let's now make this be the right size. So, if I hold the Shift key, I can kind of put it where it's supposed to go on right down the nose, right over here, and I'm just about the right size. Let me make it bigger. Let's put it here, and let's get close on it, and that is going to be where the eye one was, right about there. This is where the upper chin was, so I think that this one right here was supposed to go up here. I'm going to go back to Photoshop and take a gander at the position. Okay, so see how this was just above his lip? You see how that was right there? There is that little dot that's right by his eye here, so I can use these as placements. So let's go back to Illustrator and let's move it in. I'm really close to where it should be. Okay, I think I should go up just a little bit. So let me make it just slightly smaller. Let's be picky about it. Make it come down like that. Slightly smaller, just a little bit more. Okay, now let me make it come down. And now I believe I'm right where it should go. Okay, that's right about where it should go. So let's move it over just a little bit. Nope, his nose needs to be right about there. Now, let's color it that same pink. Okay, so if I really wanted to know the colors, I would click it. I would click this and I would put this in at the same RGB values. So I know it was around, let's click back to Photoshop. Let's click this and let's go 244, 199, and 194. 199 and 194. So let's click back to here. Let's go 244, 199, and 194. Now, I probably should write these down, but I am real close to where that value is supposed to be. So now let's click OK. Now there's your fill. So now we move this down. Let's take this down into our texture number 2, and let's put it below. Let's put it below the other ones. The overall is going to stay higher. We could call this highlight 1. And now I could save the color if I wanted to. So I could just, I'll bring this over if you want to see. I'll bring this over if you want to see. So I could take this color right here, move my way down, pick up this color from the color palette, double click it, and I could name it Highlight 1. And then move this stuff off my screen so I have more room. Now, let me click away from it to show you the harshness of it. So let's take the Direct Select tool. That's just too harsh, okay? Oh, okay, so, okay, where is my fill? Let me see it. It's at 100%. Let me move it up above here. And it's on my fill. So can you see over here in this icon, there is definitely a fill there. But I have it on the right opacity, and it's just for a second, it's not showing up. I should have actually locked up. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Let's lock up every other layer but that, because I didn't really want you to see anything in there. Now let's go like this and click it, make sure it's the fill, which it is. There's a reason why it's not showing up, which is silly, and I'll find out in a second. Okay, I realized my silly error. Hey, it's going to happen, okay? I made the parent layer have a 3% or 4% opacity. The parent layer should stay up to 100%. It's the items in the layer that should have their opacity reduced. So what I want to do is turn on this one again, click to this one, which is the overall, and put it down, and I apologize for this, to about 4%. Now I'll click away from it. Now do you see the harshness of this highlight on his face? If I click to it and I put it, not the parent layer, on 4% or 5%, do you see how well that starts to look on his face? Now let me zoom in, and maybe we even need it more than that. So let's make this one be about 10%. Now, it can just be where I'm starting to see it, okay? I better make it more like 30% because I want to start to really see this. All right. It's between 30% and 10%. So I don't remember because I don't have them memorized on here's the determination, and I'm going to 20%. What looks good? Now that looks really good. That looks good. So now I'm going to turn off texture 2 and look at how his face doesn't look so good. Now let's go grab some more highlights in this area. Let's see if we can get more of these going. So let me hit Command S to save. And this is on my other screen, and I don't know why it's going on the other screen, but that's okay. Let's hit OK. Now I want to go back to Photoshop, and you have to be patient. It is not going to look good until it's 70 to 80% completed. So you have to be patient. I had 4 or 5 darker pore areas aside from and I'm going to click away from this highlight. To click away from this path, I have to Command click it. So let's go now and get the darker pores. Let's see if we can isolate out these darker pores right there. Now, what I did was on his face, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to back out of this. I know this may be another hard thing to understand, but I made a very saturated copy of his face, and I went to levels and I really leveled it off. Why did I do that? Because now on this one I can maybe grab more of these darker colors, stay away from this lighter color, and it'll give me the pores on the dark side of his face, like this one right over here. Let's go see what happens when I grab this dark value, or if I use this darker one of his face right there to grab off of. So I'm going to make a selection of it. I'm not going to paint this color back on. First, let's do the highlight number 2, then we'll do the dark pore number 1. So let me grab this color off of this one. Gosh, I hope you understand that. So let's go into color range. Let's go zoom in and grab this color right here. Now I'm going to go way down. Now I hope I get more of those areas here, which I did. Now that looks cool. Now I might not want them all in this area here, so I'll have to diminish them or get rid of them from the selection. I really like them in this area. There are more highlights in that area. So what could I do if I really wanted to do this? Well, first, I'm going to bring it into the Adobe Illustrator file, and I'll make the decision if it looks good or not. So now, let's turn this into a work path. I'll say OK. Now, I should save this file, and I'll use the same or a lighter variation of the highlight color. But now let's copy it. Let's wait for a second. Let me hit Control C. Okay, so again, I had some interruption there. That's okay. Let me go copy. And then let's bring this into, before I leave, I should save this work path as highlight 2. And let it do its thing. And now let me save this file. Okay, and let me Command or Control click and click away from that. Now let's click back into Illustrator. Let's zoom out of Illustrator. Let's make sure the parent layer has a blank circle, which means there's no opacity on it or no effect on it. That's fine. Hit Command V to paste. Let's do the same thing. Let's paste it. And now it's giving me this warning because it says that I'm attempting to drag it into a layer that is either locked or hidden. And I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. So it's choosing a new layer, and I'm going to move it down into the correct layer. Let's call it Highlight 2. Just like we did before. And let's hit the E key, and then we'll make it bigger again so that we can bring it back over here and put it where it's supposed to go. Now I know that that was part of his nose. I need to get slightly bigger with it over here, but this time I'm not going to go crazy with it. And I think we're in about the right area right there. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it. That looks like that was for his scar anyway. So let's take this now and let's fill it with the same kind of gentle color. So I'll hit the eyedropper and I'll fill it with this light color right there. And now let's click away from it and see how that one works in comparison or in difference to the highlight number 1. So let me turn off this highlight. Let me turn on that highlight, and let's now put that at an opacity of about 20. And I'll click away from it. So I'll use the direct selection tool. And now maybe this one wants to go a little bit different. So here are the two highlights. Which one looks better? That one? Look at this side of the cheek where I'm pointing to over here. That one or that one? I think they're both needed. And I think that this highlight number 2 needs to go a little softer than highlight number 1. So let's go down to 15%. And there is the decision that you have to make as an artist. I think they both look incredible. In fact, this little highlight on the side of his nose, I'll turn off highlight 2. Look at how amazingly beautiful that is. That just comes in gorgeous. And now he's looking wonderful. But, and here's the but, I'm going to turn this off. Maybe the highlight on this side of the cheek isn't needed. So what I wanted to do was leave this one. You see how I'm telling you about this one? I think this one is getting in the way here. And let me find the edge of it. And let me hit the delete key once and twice. And now I think that one is cool. Now this one shouldn't be on his nose. This one went up his nose. So I'm going to shift click or option click inside here or click the whole outside. Now I'm going to move that one over and get it away from his nose. Now that one shouldn't even be there. So I'm going to delete that one out right out. So now you have to have your own discretion. Okay? And that's important. You have to make sure that you are using your own discretion on how good things look. I'm even going to make this one down to about 10%. And now I think that looks a lot better in conjunction with the darker one and the overall one. I'm hitting Command C. Okay. I'm moving this over so you can see because I don't want to hide anything from you. Let's go get a dark number 1. It is not going to look good until it is 70% completed, but look what happens when I turn off texture 2. It's looking awesome. Now I need dark pores over where I'm talking about right over here. I don't have them. Let's go get them. Okay, so I saved this file. Let's go back into Photoshop as soon as the file is saved. Thank you very much. And let's go back here. Now let's use this one to grab the dark pores in that area. Now I might use, nope, I want to use that one because I don't need them in this dark, dark, dark area. Let me see what I did in photo. Okay, I kept that pretty dark. I don't need almost anything in this dark area of his face. So let's go back into Photoshop. And let's turn on that extra one that I made. Command click it because you need your selection. And now we're going to go grab this dark right over here. So it is going to make kind of a dark edge, but we'll see about if we can get rid of that. So let's go to select color range. And let's go close to this one right here. And let's grab this dark pore. Now I've got the dark pores over here and on the side of his nose. Let's make it go up a little bit so we get a little bit more dark pores. Now I'm getting a little bit afraid that I've got too many paths for it to work today, but let's now go grab those darks right there. Okay, look at how I've got those neat darks. Call it dark 1. Call it anything you want, but now let's go to, let's go to make a work path. And now when that work path gets saved, let's immediately go to here and name this one dark 1. Now I'm going to save the file just so when it quits I at least have what I've done. And then I'm going to go to Command C. I'm going there because you know why. And let's click over here. Let's hit Command V. Let's get this thing and hit OK. Now it's working more efficiently for whatever reason. Let me hit the E key and put this over here. And now I could have actually scaled it up and then I could have memorized the scale, but it's not so bad if I just do this by hand and just kind of fit it on one corner. I mean, I know that's around his chin area. That's just about where that needs to go. A little bit bigger. So let's go like this and make that a little bit bigger. Let me move this up. And now that's in about the right area. And now let's color it the dark color. So let's zoom in. Let's hit the eyedropper and let's color this the dark color that we have here. And let me make it just a darker brown like this right there. Okay. Now again, this one needs to move down into that same layer right there. I'll call it dark 1. And let's go now put it on a very light opacity. Maybe let's try 10%. That might be too dark. Yes, that's too dark. It is definitely too dark. So let's take that whole thing by clicking the radio button and go down to 5%. I'm curious at what I actually made the original. Okay, that's actually helping. It's actually giving me more of that cool value that I needed. Okay, now what I want to do though is I really want to see what I did on texture number 1. So you've seen the technique, right? You've seen the technique. So let me turn this off and turn on the first one I did. And let me now unlock it and let's zoom in and see what I did over here. It was about the same thing. Here was the darkest one. Okay, I got these pores right over here. The next one were this a bit of them, the real dark pores. Then I got these, what I call dark number 2, which was surrounding the light areas. And then the first dark was about what I got on the other first dark. So I got one highlight one, and I got the small pores on the whole face. Now, this one right here was at 3%. This one was at 10. See how I did the same, almost the same 10. This dark was at 3, and this one was at 22, just 2%. This dark 3 was at 5%. I'm looking over here now. And this darkest one was at 3%. And now with a combination of those, they all work. Okay, so look at how beautiful it is with the dark pores on this side. If I take away the dark pores, they're kind of gone right over there. Now, the overall one really gives the body uniform, but you need them all. So, look at how the dark pores on his neck worked. Look at how I actually got those dark pores in a beautiful way using the same Photoshop technique. Let's go back into Photoshop. And then moving into his neck, I better turn this off. And then moving into his neck, I'll turn this layer off. And look at how I got those dark lines in his neck. I bet you that I actually made a darker neck. Let me see if I can even find that. This might not have been the file that I actually got his neck material on. Nope, it was a different one. So I need you to understand the combination of working and gathering these paths right here. Shouldn't have clicked it. These paths right here are the secret to bringing them into here and making them look right here. So today, I'll turn this off and I'll turn this back on. We actually went and made a, put the dark one underneath the overall, actually on top of the overall. Actually, I had the overall be the highest one. So it went dark one. See how I'm turning that off over here? I think I could make that more of an opacity than 5. I think today I'll go to 7, but I certainly wouldn't go any higher than 7. It's a little bit too strong right here. Starting, nope, I was right in the first place. So I think it's better pushed back. But that's the secret. That is the secret to making Illustrator look incredible when it comes to texture. So without this texture, I'll turn on the one that I had. Without that texture, this does not look like a great file. I mean, it's the gradient mesh is nice, but you wouldn't ever say that that looks painterly, all right? And that does look painterly. It looks like it wasn't created in a vector program, and that was my secret. That was my hope and desire. So I hope what I've done is help you understand that it's going to take more than one layer, and it's going to take for you to be discriminant on when you go into Photoshop what it is you actually want to color range. So have both your files open. Be prepared to isolate out your section. Now, I have to tell you something before I click away from this. If I had needed to grab his whole face, I just would have taken a path and I would have quickly drawn around his face like this. Do you see how I'm getting very quickly to draw this path? And I would have just, it wouldn't have had to be a perfect path because I would have just isolated all this stuff. Look at how I'm going around his whole face like this. Now there really wasn't any reason to go in this dark area here because the pores wouldn't have shown up. But that path would have been his whole face. I would have just said face. And then I would have used, if I wanted to get more isolated in certain shapes, like this dark color right here, that would have been a really good dark color to get for his beard. I didn't even try his beard. See, I just want to keep on going. I didn't even try his beard on the first one. So if I want to, I can make a selection of that. Let's just enter color range just for a second. You can turn me off now, but I'm going to keep on going for 2 seconds. And let's get his beard color. So this might not work. So I'm going to grab his beard color. We're going to go down to a very slight beard color right there. And I can see it's all throughout this area. Let me click OK. Let's see if this can even make a selection, a work path from the selection. Let's call it beard. So let's go to make work path, blah, blah, blah. Let's click. Let's hope it takes about 15 seconds. And then we'll use the beard shape. OK, so that's going to be beard. I might even say beard 1. And let's click OK. Let's hit Command C. Let's copy, save the file. So wait till it's done saving, Brian. OK, now back into Illustrator. Let's hit Command V. Let's paste it as a compound path. Let's hit the E key. Let's just make this bigger really fast. I can almost tell exactly how much bigger to make it. Look at how fast I'm going. Let's put this into his face where it's supposed to go. This one goes down here. I made it too big. Goes like this. This one goes above his lip. And there is where this one goes, I believe. Let me triple check. I know I'm wrong. Let's go back into Photoshop. Okay, eye and eye. So if I locate them in the bags of his eyes and then this touches the tip of his nose, I'm doing good. So let's take these and let's put them in the bags of his eyes and then move it over and then the tip of his nose, which is right there. Oh, I'm pretty good. So I think I need to make it just slightly smaller, like this. And I think I'm pretty good. So I think I need to go smaller. Okay, bags of his eyes. And let me see where the lip thing is. Boy, I think I'm just too big. I know, hey, this is not rocket science. Okay, this is right above his lip, on his nose, and the bags of his eyes. That shouldn't be that hard, Brian. Why are you making it that hard? I'm holding the shift key. Let's go like that. Let's go down to the bags of his eyes. That's looking better right there. Okay, let's move it down into our layer. I would probably play a little bit more with that. Let's call this beard 1. Let's go get the color from his beard, which is going to be about this color right here, and I'll make it darker. So let me hit the eyedropper. Let's grab this color, and then we have a nice dark value for his beard. Let me turn on the texture layer. Now, let's go like this. And let's go see what, I want you to see what it looks like raw. You would panic, right? You would totally panic if that were the color that you had, right? But let's click it. Let's put it at a 3% opacity. And now let's go in close. And now let's see if that impacted. I think I love it. Look at how that added. You see, I'm gonna put it up at 5% so you can see it better. But I want you to see something. Look at how that added this really cool beard area color here. I still think 3% was great. I'll go halfway and go to 4%. And now I'm going to turn it off and on. Look at how that really adds to that. And if I move back on this, oh my God, that adds wonderful stuff. I'm not crazy about this shape it made up and down his face here. So what I should do is cut that away from the original, and there is a way to actually cut that out of the original. You could take the C key and you could cut it on any one of these and then just eliminate some of these. I don't want to get lost in how to do that with Illustrator, but I actually think that 3% probably wouldn't have made that be so apparent over there, and it doesn't. It kind of melts into his face. But look at how neat this is looking. And that's actually I could just keep on going because I love doing this stuff. So let me turn off the texture there. So here is the texture on texture 2. Look at how neat that looks. Wow. You don't have to go too far, but I am making the texture on this one look pretty darn good, and I should still keep on going. But hope you enjoyed the movie. Hope you enjoyed learning about color range on soft and hard product. Thank you very much.